it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 5 of Steins Gate. And last episode, there was a lot of things that were coincidental and coming together, and I was like, So we need to talk about this. We need to talk about some comments. We need to talk about the English dub for episode 4. And we need to talk about this book, The Cloud Understands Our Scarecrow Hearts, which I'm going to talk about briefly here in a second as a little mini book review before we get started. But as far as the dub goes for episode 4, there were a lot of really good one-liners. I just watched the dub for episode 4 before jumping into this. There was a lot of really good one-liners. Whenever Amane does the Akira power slide towards Okarin and is just calling him by his first name, his actual name, he's like, well, firstly, here is it's Hoeen Kioma, and he's like, second, a hearty hail and well met will suffice. A hearty hail and well met will suffice is just absolutely amazing. Now, one thing about the English dub, and we're going to talk about the English dub with a comment that I literally just got before jumping on here to record this. Amane calls herself a skilled warrior in the dub, but I'm not taking much stock in that, and we're going to talk about why. I'm still going to say that soldier is this sub, and we're going to look at it. Okarin does wonder if Moika's with the organization. He did talk about that in episode 4. I don't know if I caught that for the discussion last week, but he did talk about Moika. He wonders if she's working for the organization. I think it's a red herring. I think it's Amane, but we'll see. And then whenever he is talking with Christina in the laundromat, and she's talking about theories, I think my favorite line of the entire episode is, theories are no more than lexical chicanery, the love poetry of imbeciles. Love it. And then he says, I believe in street argot, the phrase is payback's a bitch. Just, that line didn't quite, I don't know if it made sense for the moment in the dub. Again, we're going to talk about that in a hot second. And then he does change the code name of the strategy he uses against Feyris from G-Back to Kaboom, which K-B-O-O-M, which, makes sense in the context of what he was trying to do with the whole self-destructing thing. Then my favorite conversation is that when Christina calls him back to find out where he's at, and he's at the shrine, or he's on his way to the shrine, she says, it's me. And he goes, me who? I know a lot of people by that name, though I have to say, you sound like someone I once knew in Paris. And she's like, you're the most impossible human being I've ever met. But it's kind of their love language, because later on, he's like, there's that ever-present attitude. And she's like, you bring it out in me. And I'm like, it's kind of like them flirting. It's kind of like their love language is them kind of getting on each other's nerves, but her having this crazy curiosity. And I actually do love the moment at the end of episode 4 where they're walking the computer together at the end. It makes it seem like they're going to drop the computer, but it's also them bonding. And is Christina relating Okarin to her dad, or realizing that he is curious and cares for her? We'll have to see. He was concerned about her being stabbed, so we'll have to see. But Jav Gamer on the Discord, literally before I hopped on to record this, made a note that they linked up an article, because I'm an English teacher, so I want credible sources. And they did include a source. I couldn't look at it because they said there were slight spoilers, and I'm like, oh, no. It's way too early. No spoilers for Romania. But they did link an article in the Discord, and I pinned it, where it was talking about the English dub script was actually written by the cast members primarily, which is why it feels so natural and it comes off the tongue. And look, I love that. I think that's amazing. I think it's awesome that the cast members all work together to write on it. It's also why I'm watching the Japanese subs. Because I was like, that's cool and all, but they're literally just paraphrasing and ad-libbing and changing the context potentially of the actual dialogue so that it fits the lips and sounds fun. And that's great and all, but there's already been within these first 4 episodes some context changed from the sub to the dub that I'm like, ooh, that changes the meaning a little bit. I don't know if I like that. So I love the dub and think it's super fun to watch. But for an analytical purpose with our discussions, we need to look at the sub, because I want to see the original script, not the cast members got together and had fun and rewrote it to make it fit the lip movements. A purist wants to see the sub to know exactly what we're dealing with the script, and then the dub will be a fun in between to watch. So a lot of people probably wouldn't care about that, but we are doing this for science. So we have to do this right? Bestial Moon with episode 2 says the discussion makes me want to break out my copies of Hawking's Universe in a Nutshell or A Brief History of Time again. I read them a long time ago and deluded myself into thinking that I understood it. Which, you know what? If I got a chance to look at Hawking's Universe in a Nutshell, that might be a fun book to kind of like get out and look at while we're going through these episodes. We'll see. MK also noted alongside Bestial Moon that @channel is 2chan, which is basically the Japanese version of 4chan, which 4chan, let's not go down that rabbit hole. And then Goodle is Google. It's not a spoiler, just something English audiences might pick up on, but Japanese, but might not pick up some. I mean, I instantly knew that Goodle was Google, but I did not get the @channel being 2chan, so that's cool to know. The Goodle was pretty on point, on the nose. But thank you. And then Armin says that Ruka's official name is Luca or Lukaku or Lukako, confirmed by the creators, and it's like that in the visual novels, but the sub doesn't know. But here's the thing, the English dub says Ruka. The English dub calls her Ruka, or him. We don't get confirmation if, Okarin says that Ruka's a dude, but does Luca or Ruka ascribe as a dude? I'm going to keep calling them Ruka because the dub calls them Ruka. In the actual, if you listen in the sub, it says Ruka. And just because the subs say Ruka and it's supposed to be Luca, the actual voice actors are saying Ruka. So I'm going to keep calling them Ruka. And if it's annoying people, I'm sorry. The mods will correct me eventually, but I'm going to keep calling them Ruka, even if the visual novel says Luca, because the actual voice actors are saying Ruka. So what we do. And then one more mistake is that L Psi Congru is typed with a K, so it's Congru, which Congru is not really even a word, I don't think. I thought it stood for congruent, but we'll see. Please no spoilers. So the fun fact, the creators really did quite some research when working on this one. It's one of the interviews with a writer that says the main creator gave them 10 books on time travel and scientific theory to read. That's why it's considered to be one of the most realistic time travel shows out there. Well, Christina would say that we don't have time travel yet, that it's just a fluke, but we'll see where that goes. But I do like the idea that the researchers, that they did a lot of research and the creators gave them a lot of books to go off of. I think that's interesting. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see what we're going to get with this, so we'll just have to see. But I think that's awesome that they did a lot of research going into this to make it like a legitimate sci-fi, which is cool. And then finally, Alexander Q says, it's super sweet and great that Okarin has so many friends. I feel like in other shows, a character like Okarin would have been ostracized or marginalized because of his strong personality. But here we see that, sure, he's a weirdo, trademark, but he has found a niche group of friends where he thrives, more or less. I also think this might have something to do with the fact that most of the shows that would not know how to deal with Okarin would be set in high school. And with it being a college setting, it's a much different time in life. So that could also influence the way he is regarded and how he's found his group, whether they believe or just let him be. We don't know, but he still has them. I think that's very true as well. And I used to substitute teach high school, and I personally loved my high school experience. It wasn't sunshine and roses, but I didn't have any regrets or I didn't dislike it. I enjoyed it for the most part. But I have met a lot of students that hated their high school experience. And when they come to college, which is the age level I teach, they're kind of like, oh, this is not like high school. And I'm like, no, it's not. The nice thing about high school is you do kind of find, the nice thing about college in relation to high school is you do kind of find a niche group of friends that share your interests or kind of have quirks similar to you. And you kind of are able to come out of your shell and be accepted, where in high school, it's so easy to be like marginalized or, called out and bullied. So not to say that it doesn't happen in college, but I feel like in college, there's an escape. If you don't like somebody, you just stop hanging around them. In high school, as someone that graduated with a class of 23 people, you can't escape. You're stuck with those people for like 12 years, and there is no getting out of it because there's so few of you, or at least in some circumstances. But yeah, so I do want to point out before we start, I know this is a long intro, but my coworker gave me this book of poetry that her in-law actually wrote. So this is called The Cloud Understands Our Scarecrow Hearts by Jonathan Travelstead. It's poetry, and I had heard that he was writing this, and I'm an English teacher, so I kind of like poetry. But when I got to opening it, I borrowed it this weekend, and I got to opening it, and I was like, I need to talk about this with the Steins Gate crew because this was published in 2024, so last year. But the very first poem, there's a foreword by Sequoia Nagamatsu, which we're going to check out a little paragraph from here in a second. But the first point, it's like a poetry book split into 4 different parts. And the first part is called God Particle. And the first poem is called Fast Food Cook Mansplains the Large Hadron Collider. And I was like, oh. So I'm going to read the foreword, like the first paragraph of this foreword, and then show you the Hadron Collider poem, because I was like, this is kind of Steins Gate-y. So it says, picture this. 2 grown men in a small southern Illinois town talking about quantum physics and the multiverse in a karaoke bar populated with fake palm trees. An afternoon spent searching for model rockets, the anticipation around the launch pad in a grove of trees littered with beer bottles and fast food wrappers, and a brief but exhilarating moment staring up at an exhaust trail. How high did the rocket go? Where? We never found it, but at launch the universe fractured. In one reality, the rocket landed atop the roof of a nearby school. In another, in a parallel reality both of us wanted to live in, the rocket kept going, far beyond the capabilities of the S model rocket specifications, through an anomaly in space-time where it would land in our future, our past, all the joyful and melancholic permutations of our lives. And I was like, I know the man that has wrote this book and this book of poetry, and I kind of want to be like, do you want to watch Steins Gate? You should watch Steins Gate, because they do have a poem in here that mentions Pokemon. So I was like, they might watch anime or know of it. So I'm like, I kind of want to check it out. But anyway, I'm going to read the very first poem that had the Hadron Collider. It's not very long, but I thought it would be relevant. It says, Fast Food Cook Mansplains the Large Hadron Collider. We have tools right now that release us from the most low-level drudgery. We will see the predictions of true technological unemployment finally come true, by Werner Wenge. And the poem goes, the way I see it, it's a Mexican standoff over who's the first to see the new thing. Like this, white coats in labs cannonball their luchadors in opposing directions around the planet. Only it's not a planet. It's a 17-mile ring, underground. The wrestlers, particles of light. And all of us waiting, that third eye shatters on the machinery of ghosts. Why I care? Because ghost whisperers don't work shit jobs. Months pass after the mashup, and nada, bupkis. The kitchen of tomorrow's come. El Presidente is trying to buy in Greenland. Yet our Ouija board's silent on the subject. My body double never showed at work today, so I'm closing the clam on frozen patties, greased to my forearms while Pam gets her smoke on. January 1st, they'll replace the counter girl with a computer whose only vice is a bricked screen, writings on the wall. China's producing black holes we'll soon study up close. Even one would shrink a Mack truck to a sugar cube so heavy it would plunge to the Earth's core. Enough progress. I'll knock anyone upside his goddamn monocle who dips his cup in a particle accelerator, who wants another chain reaction of economic upheaval from the technology sector, who wants another epoch of transition from corn syrup back to simple sugar silicon to cellulose and fig leaves. Fuck you. You can have it. I love it. I love it. I like some edgy poetry. But yeah, so this is The Cloud Understands Our Scarecrow Hearts. I'm doing self-promotion. I'm going to do a shameless plug. Jonathan has no clue I'm recording this. But yeah, I was like, oh, it felt like a connection to Steins Gate and the Hadron Collider with the last couple episodes. I was like, that's kind of cool. So it's a very sci-fi, techno, modern poetry. So if you get a chance, I believe it's probably on Amazon or somewhere or some book retailer. But yeah, pretty cool. So yeah, I thought that was neat. But yeah, so that was my poetry reading for the day. I love a little slam poetry. And I'm sorry this has been a 15-minute intro, but we need to dive into episode 5 of Steins Gate. So I'm super excited, y'all. I hope you all are too. The good thing is, again, the streaming service that I am using does not have the English dub, but somebody has put it on YouTube, so you can find they're like in 3-episode increments. So I'm just going to watch the English dub through that means until I can't no more. Although I could probably buy the Blu-ray for the season. I could probably do that. I'll probably end up doing that because I really like this series. So yeah. And plus, if you can't, choked on spit, if you can't find the dub now, might need to invest in it, just in case. So anyway, we're going to get started. I'm super excited. I hope you all are too. But we're going to start Steins Gate episode 5. See what we get with this IBM computer. We're going to do that here. In 3, 2, 1. And I hope I'm not going to choke on any more spit. Oh, buddy. Buckle your seatbelts. There was a lot that happened this episode, and lots of things going on. I'm really excited about this. We're going to adjust my microphone here and get started, but there is a lot going on, and there is a lot. I am so amazed that Okarin is not suspect to Amane whatsoever, who is giving off all of the red flags and all of the freaky vibes. I'm like, you're not questioning Amane at all? Not one bit? Nothing? Okay, great, cool. Mad scientist, you do you. But I'm like, Amane is my, like, public enemy number 1 right now of this whole thing, because I think that she's with the organization. I don't know. I could be wrong. So let's look at the people that want this computer. So we have over here, John Titor wants info on the IBN 5100 because he wants to go back and stop CERN. Allegedly. Then we have Moika, who wants the info, but is not saying why or for what purpose. Doesn't know. Then we have Amane, who knows what's going on, who knows about the IBN 5100, but is not saying anything about why. She's just like, oh, well, you got that computer, that's fun. Are you gonna look for parts of it? Want me to come with? Like, she's being super secretive about it. Whereas Moika's like, I need to find out information on it. John Titor's like, I need to find information as well. So there's people that want to know this information. And as we're finding out, CERN might be making a time machine. So, okay. But anyway, so we start out this episode on the rooftop where later on Keoma will make his statement that he's gonna beat CERN to making a time machine. And I'm like, this will surely have no bad repercussions. This shall surely not have anything bad happen. But then we go to, again, the ambiance when we see Amane, the turned off TVs, and she said she went to work there because she liked CRT TVs, but she's not using any of them. Okay. And then she's sitting in this dark, creepy silence, looking at this pin in her hand that looks like it's from a cult or a secret organization. I don't know. It looks like a Q, or it looks like a cog, or it looks like a clock. I can't decide what it is, but it's a pin, and she's messing with it. And that's when she's called to take care of the front. I'm curious. So we start this where we left off with dear Christina and Okarin carrying the computer to get back. And Amane does not notice at first because a nice setup from last episode is that Christina, and I'm just going to call her Christina, it's easier than Kurisu, that she has her back turned where Amane can't notice her. So her back's turned, she just sees Hoin, Keoma, Okarin, and she's like, oh, hey, what are you guys doing? And girl, he's like, we need to hide from organization pursuit. Every time he says something like that, then she pops up. And I'm like, it just feels like it's so obvious that she's with the organization. And she's like, no one's chasing us. And then here's Amane saying his full-blown name, right? So yeah, he's like, normally it would be top secret, and I wouldn't be able to just tell you. And then he's like, Endure assistant. And he's like, just tell her. And he's like, no, it's of utmost importance. She's like, oh, it's an IBN Video 100. He's like, she found out Christina. Now, he keeps calling her assistant or Christina, so Amane is not able to put 2 and 2 together and realize that it's Kurisu right off the bat. And she's like, oh, where'd you find one? And he's like, it was at the shrine. He's like, where I, the mad scientist chosen by God. I'm like, oh my God. Okarin lives in a fantasy where he believes that everything's revolving around him. And you know what? So far, he's the protagonist of this story, and it kind of is happening that way. But when she turns and sees Kurisu, Girl, Amane has had like 2 PTSD flashbacks right now in this episode. No one seems to notice or care, but it's kind of conflicting for me. And I'm like, should we pay attention to this? So Amane has 2 freakouts, 2 PTSD episodes. The first is when she sees Kurase, or Kurisu, when she sees her and says, Makise Kurisu. And she's like, yes. And she's like, who is this? And then she, like, has a baton and is ready to go. And then the second is when she sees the helicopter and asks if it's bombs. I'm wondering, and this is just throwing out theories to the wind. These are probably wrong, but I'm going to throw out because they're on my brain at the moment. My thought is, 1, is Amane from a different world line? Is Amane from a dystopian world line where in that world line, Kurisu might be a threat? Kurisu might be, you know, in that timeline, is Kurisu a threat or someone to be scared of? Because we had one world line where Kurisu was killed during the lecture. So was Kurisu being targeted? Kurisu, I think, in this world line is innocent and doesn't understand what's going on. But I feel like Amane could be from a different world line where it is dystopian because she's like, sees the helicopter, thinks it's bombs, sees Kurisu, thinks she's a threat, and she's traveled back to this world line maybe to escape that other one, but then sees her and is like, oh, I know what you're going to be like in the future because I'm from the future or I'm from a different world line. Maybe, I don't know, but she does freak out when she sees her. And then the guy gets her to go and finish doing her job. But yeah, she definitely freaked out seeing Kurisu. He's like, what are you doing? Talking on the job. Huh. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm curious. It's like, why was she glaring at me? He's like, because you look like a thug. Okarin was hilarious in this episode. Some of the things he said I thought were hilarious. But yeah, she goes back in and then like is reflecting on seeing her. What the fudge, y'all? What the fudge show? Something's up with Amane. I don't think she's from this world line. I think she's from a different one. I don't know. We'll see. So this episode's called STARMINE Rendezvous. What does STARMINE mean? I mean, what does STARMINE mean? Or is it STARMINE? What does that mean? The energy and strength for continuing to do something over a long period of time. Okay. Interesting. Okay. I mean, could it be that Amane is a time traveler and has been coming to different world lines? Could be. We're going to talk about that later in this episode, but it could be. We don't know. Mayuri's sitting on, again, Mayuri is... I feel like they all have their niches. I feel like this group all have their insanities and their quirks. Daru is just the chillest of them all, so it doesn't come out as often. He's so chill, it doesn't come out. But Mayuri's sitting on his shirt, and he's like, keep doing that. I was like, that's so gross, you pervert. Quit. Like, stop it. And so then they carry the computer in, and Mayuri's like, hey, you said you were never coming back, but maybe you can come back and stay a while. And then she says, well, I'm not here because I want to be. And then Mayuri's like, you mean you don't want to come here? It's like, Mayuri is so innocent and precious. I'm like, how could you talk bad about her? Like, she's just the nicest person. And then, of course, Christina's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. So they get the IBN 5100 into the place. I love Daru's little song that he sings where he's like, wow. And he's like, way to go, Okarin. And he's like, he does all the things that Okarin can. And that's why we love him. But she says, I don't admire him, though. Look. The fact we're gonna put Kurisu down here. Does Kurisu have an attraction to Okarin? Yes. I think she does. I think she does. I think Okarin is too oblivious to notice it. But she's also got, and we're going to put this in giant letters, she has some father issues. And issues with male figures. And we need to talk about that. Probably why Ruka, aka Luca, she was totally chill with, because did not have the same imposing nature. But yeah. And she's like, anyway, like, I love him, but I don't admire him. I'm like, girl, you said it. You said it, not them. So let's give Mayuri credit, because Mayuri is the reason we found this, which also the little plush that we see on the floor is the same little Uba that we saw in episode 1, only this is like the plush version and not the little metal one. I'm telling y'all, Mayuri is the key to all this, if we can get her working. So they hook up the IBM machine, but I like the reality that Daru is saying, look, this isn't connected to the internet. It's a decoding program, but I've got to figure out how it works and how to decode it. He's like, it's not something you can simply just turn on and hook it up and make it work. So yeah. So, at first, Okarin wants her to, like, walk around and go get the tools that Daru needs, but Mayuri is dead set on showing her around the lab, right? And so she's like, I'll stay here with Mayuri. And he's like, you couldn't have entrapped Mayuri with your wiles as well. Again, Okarin is like, your feminine wiles are entrancing everyone. Daru, now Mayuri. I'm like, what about you, sir? What about you? Because for some reason she likes you. She's like, I did no such thing. And then, of course, Daru's like, Mikase seducing Mayuri. Yuri is in the air. I mean, Daru, I was ahead of you on that one, but Daru's a real one, you know, and they're like, you pervert. No. It's nice for girls to be together, isn't it? Mayuri's like, let's be platonic friends. So they start with the shower room, and the shower room is just like boxes of junk. Like, it's pretty bad. And Christina's like, you have a shower? And she's like, oh yeah, but if you use it for too long, the water gets cold. And she's like, Mayuri, you do not need to be using this shower room around these two perverted men. Please stop doing that. Mayuri's like, it's fine. These guys aren't any problem. She's like, promising you'll never shower here again. I love it. She's like, why are you here anyway? Did he threaten or blackmail you into becoming a member against your will? And then she says, I'm a hostage. and Kurisu responds in a way that a normal person, like Braun downstairs, when she said she was a hostage, Braun's like, well, isn't that nice? And then, you know, as he's cleaning his glass, and then Kurisu responds as a normal person should and said, oh my God, I'm calling the police. You're a hostage. And that's when Mayuri has to settle the situation, saying, no, I chose to be a hostage. She said she was your hostage. She's like, I became one myself. So we find out that they're childhood friends. Something has probably happened to Mayuri's family, and she's staying with Kiyoma, and Kiyoma's watching over her like a big brother. You know, that's the vibe I get. Because he's like, I'm going to go. I feel like Okarin doesn't want to talk about what's happened to Mayuri's family or what's happened in the past. It might be a sore spot he doesn't want to be a part of. So he volunteers to just leave at that moment. But Mayuri, we as the audience don't get to find out, which sucks. I wanted to know. And so she tells Kurisu what's going on. So he's looking at this like tech spot, which is kind of cool. I like that we get all of these like just boxes of just technical like plugs and gadgets and the little tiny little pieces of like a board, like a switchboard and stuff. Like, I love that you get all these little trinkets and pieces. And then Amane's like, oh, here I am. You think you'll be able to use that IBM 5100? And he's like, don't just say that. Wow, this is a pretty rare computer. We don't want people to know. She says, are you collecting parts? Would you like some help? And so the English dub had Amane calling herself a warrior, but last episode they called her a soldier. But here I'm kind of putting my foot in my mouth because he says a part-time warrior here would be so knowledgeable about PCs. And she's like, I once knew someone who understood a lot about IBMs. So we have Amane here, who is kind of a mechanic and knows computers. And she used to work for a dead man who understood IBNs. Now, John Teeter is looking for the IBN to stop CERN, so I don't know if it's him. And then we get confirmation for Kurisu that she has not seen her dad in 7 years. So she does not talk to him. She talks to her mom and that's it. Now, at first, when Amane was saying this, I was like, wouldn't it be something if Christina, aka Kurisu's dad, was the one that taught her about IBNs, and he's dead, and she learned from him, and she knows about Kurisu from a different world line. It's possible. It's possible she's talking about Kurisu's dad, because he's all into conspiracy theories, but I don't know if that's the case or not. Or it'd be funny if it was like Daru from the future or something, on John Teeter or something. We don't know who her mentor is, but they knew a lot about IBNs, and she learned from them. Okay. She's only supposedly 18, too, so that's curious. And he's like, really? Put me in touch with them. And she's like, no, that's impossible. They're dead. He died years ago. And at that point, again, Okarin, who is ever respectful for the dead, is like, oh, sorry about that. So she's like, no, I apologize for earlier. He's like, did my assistant do something to you? And she says, oh, nothing. Like, maybe she glared at you first. I know she snorted at you. And then she says, no, she hasn't done anything. And he's like, well, then why is it? And she crushes the can. So something has gone down with Kurisu and Amane. She doesn't know anything yet. Okarin, why are you not picking up on this? That yet's a pretty strong word. So apparently she does not know yet. If that's not I'm a time traveler coming back into the past and I know Kurisu from the future jargon, I don't know what else is. But I think Amane's from the future. I think Amane's a time traveler from a dystopian future, and she's come back to try to stop it. And she's getting involved with Okarin and them, but I don't know. And she says to be wary of her. And when she hears the helicopter, she freaks out and gets down like she's ready to attack. But it was just a helicopter going to televise the fireworks. Like, and then when she's like, oh, I've never seen fireworks before. I'm like, what? You've assumed a helicopter has bombs. You know Kurisu from somewhere. You know about IBM computers, but you've never seen fireworks? I think she's from the future where it's dystopian. I think that's Amane's thing. She's like, I've heard of those, but I've never seen them. She's like, which way are they? And he's like, it's that way towards the river. And she's like, tell me your mail address. I think she's from the future. I think that she is a time traveler from the future that made it back. Because she doesn't know about things that she probably should know about, but she knows about things that don't seem logically to make sense for an 18-year-old. So my theory is that she's a time traveler and she's come back, but I could be wrong. We'll see. So yeah, so Mayuri and Kurisu are talking about fireworks, and she's like, well, don't you want to go? And she's like, well, not really. I honestly thought that Kurisu and Mayuri were going to go to the fireworks and see Amane there. Maybe we'll eventually get a world line where that happens. But I thought they were going to go out and see her. I really thought that was going to be like a side thing in this episode. But no. Instead, Mayuri and then meet back up with Okarin. He's got all the parts. He's like, are you interested in seeing about all this? And she's like, well, just a little bit, you know. I just want to know the truth. And so Mayuri's like, I'm going to head back to the lab. She's like, you'll come back, right? So Mayuri's going home, which good for her. She's like, I'm a member until I return to America. Okay. So, and then she said, how did you grow up in the same environment and end up this socially awkward? I love that he was like, thought Mayuri was like, yeah, you know, Mayuri's got her quirks. And she's like, Mayuri's always been a bit of a weird one. She's like, I'm talking about you. Which maybe that's it. Maybe we have been just following Okarin and he's so delusional, we think he's the normal one and Mayuri's kind of the socially weird one, when it could be the other way around. It might be that Okarin is the bizarre one and Mayuri is perfectly normal. So part-time warrior. Says, more than I imagined. Fireworks are great. Part-time warrior. I like that we have Shining Finger and Part-time warrior. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, oh, young kids these days. What is he, 23? So they've got everything torn apart with the IV machine, and Daru's messing with it. And that's when she's like, I'm borrowing this. Lab coats calm me down. Girl, really, do they? Do they? So her and Okarin have a lot in common. Way more than normal. They both like lab coats. They both drink a lot of Dr. Pepper. They're both kind of like maybe a little delusional. But they have a lot in common. And there was like some genuine flirting in this episode. I was like, oh, come on, Okarin. You don't even know what you're doing. It's like Steve Urkel charming Myra. I was like, what? Or, oh my gosh, what is it? Urkel and no, Laura. Myra's the one that likes him, but it's Laura, Urkel and Laura. And then he's like, I was right. He's like, you're perfect. Okarin has no clue what he's saying, and that it comes across as highly flirty when he's like, you're perfect. It's like, that could be romantic if you wanted it to. And she's like, what's wrong? You're creeping me out. And he's like, a lab coat. In a research organization, a lab coat is a uniform. I kind of like her in the lab coat. It looks really good on her. It looks very professional. I'm like, okay. I like it better than her off-the-shoulder, awkward, would not physically be comfortable jacket. But I kind of like that. And he's like, yes. He's like, I tried to tell Daru and Mayuri to wear them, but they refuse. Neither of them seems to understand. He does the pose. It's like, neither of them seem to understand. They don't see the true genius, but you do. And then he's like, let's both stand with our hands in our pockets. I love it. He's like, yes, a pose of radiant intelligence, possibly only for those who spend their lives in research. God, it's good. These two, he is the most delusional, and she puts up with it. I'm like, she is the Sharon to his Ozzy. I live for it. She is the Sharon Osbourne to his Ozzy Osbourne. And I'm like, the ship has sailed. I really like her and him together because he's crazy. And she's just like, well, and she tries to like bring him down, but then just kind of gets up going along with it. I love it. And Daru's like, oh my God. Daru has to notice, right? He's like, I give that lab coat to you. Let us share in the glory together. And she's like, really? And he just chuckles and laughs, but she's turned away from him. She's like, it feels like you're mocking me. He's not mocking her, though. He really isn't. He's a mad scientist. Girl, he ain't mocking you. So he offers to get her a banana, which sometimes when they animate him, his little face, he's like, I have some food. And it's just like a little banana they heat up. I'm like, he looks really, they draw him really cute with like the little tiniest grin. It's actually adorable. But Okarin is a mad scientist, but he is no chef. Not at all. Him and Daru would probably starve if Mayuri didn't help them get food. And he's like, well, I do have cup ramen. He's like, I have some cup ramen that I brought, but you probably wouldn't want it as someone raised in America. But then she says cup ramen. And she's like, I'll have some of it. And she's like, what flavors? And he's like, soy sauce and salt. So I feel, in my mind, that the cup ramen maybe is something that reminds her of her father. Maybe her father being a scientist. We assume maybe he was a scientist. Probably spent late nights researching and had the cup ramen. And so she's sitting there with her arms crossed and she like it has a 1,000-yard stare you can barely see out of the corner of the screen up there. I think that she associates the cup ramen with her father. And she's like, I'll take the salt. Ramen is so salty already. I would never. No. So anyway, it's like if you don't hurry, time will expire and you'll lose. So that seems like a meta phrase as they're practicing the game, right? And there's lots of clocks, lots of hourglasses, everything with this, right? To the game that he played against Farron. And then he's like, oh, do you like Dr. Pepper Assistant? This conversation was super flirty and cute. I thought this was adorable. I loved this where he's like, oh, do you like Dr. Pepper? And, you know, it's just them getting to know each other. And it's like, I've spent 7 years in America after all. There is a lot of Dr. Pepper. And he's like, I'd love to drink with you sometime. And she's like, I'm a minor. And he's like, no. I meant drink Dr. Pepper with. And she's like, what? She's like, just that? And honestly, yeah, I think he means just that. I think he just wants to have a Dr. Pepper with her. Like, that's literally it. He's like, just that exactly. We shall share in the intellectual experience that is Dr. Pepper. God, I love this show. It's so good. I love it. And he's being just like, stop trying to look at my card while you're saying that. I love that he tries to cheat and she calls him out. So then they're playing this game and she's like, I win. And she's like, to be honest, you're not that good at taking the strategic view. And she says Okabe. She calls him by his actual first name. You only consider your own strategy and never think about your opponent's plan and or whether something is a trap. Now, I thought he would call her out on the something is a trap, because what she says in this moment is she calls him out saying that Okarin just thinks of his own strategy, but not the opponent's, or checking for traps. Which, I don't know, Amane seems like a pretty big trap. And I thought that's maybe what we were going back to. But he says, wait. And he gets mad. And she says, what? And he says, what did you say? She said, I thought you were not good at taking the strategic view. And he's like, it's true, isn't it? And then he gets, now, in this moment, does he overreact because she says his name without explaining it to her? Yes. In the context of what we've seen Okarin do so far, is it much of an overreaction? No, he's this dramatic and over the top all the time. But to her, this is him like overreacting and being really loud and kind of saying before that. He's like, you said Okabe, right? And she's like, well, yeah, so what? He's like, I'm younger than you, but for someone I'm not showing respect for. And he's like, no. And he's just yelling because he's like, he's over the top and ridiculous. But she has just as much of an over-top reaction to him. He says, I'm hoeing. How many times do I have to tell you, Christina? And he's like, from now on, remember to call me hoeing or Kioma. I love when he like turns around. He's like, how many times do I have to tell you? And he like has the shoulder. And he's like, call me hoeing or Kioma. Just, God, he's so dramatic, ridiculous. But she has a visible like reaction to him. She was like a dog that you yelled at that like hunkered down, like just that was a sign that she'd been abused. And yeah, and she just looks like she's about to cry. Like, girl has been through some shit, right? She's been through some things. And he's like, why are you crying? And she's like, no, I'm not. She's like, I definitely wasn't terrified by a guy screaming in my face, so I definitely didn't start crying from relief afterwards. That's not what happened. And he's like, then why are you crying? And Daru's like, she just told you. So, I don't know if Kurisu is yelled at by her father and had issues there, or if it was another man that's yelled at her and caused her to freak out, and if someone's verbally abused her. I don't know, but her and Amane have had some stuff happen to them that I want to know more about, but I'm not sure if I want to know more about. So we have the screen with the llama on it. And of course, they haven't ate the ramen yet. I like the hourglass beside it. And he says, do I put this here? And it is sad they just sit away for a while and don't talk to each other. Like, Okarin is soaking everything in. And he says, assistant. And she's like, I'm not your assistant, but what? And he's like, why don't you head back to the hotel for the night? I like that Okarin, he kind of maybe feels a little bit bad that he yelled at her. He was just being himself and being obnoxious, but she clearly reacted to it in a very real way, that something's happened to her. And he's like, how about you just go back to the hotel? And she's like, no, I'm going to stay here until we see what's going on. And he's like, well, don't you need to talk to your family? And she says, I've already talked to my mom. And she says, I've already talked to my mom today. My mom's in America, and I haven't spoken to my dad in 7 years. So I don't have anyone to contact. And he calls her a prodigal, perverted genius girl. And she's like, really? Stop making this weird. So then Daru gets it all loaded up. And they access the Z program. So the Z program, it says 1973 on it. And CERN was founded in 1954, and the IBM 5100 was made in 1975. So 1973 was the Z program. And we think that there's a possibility that the IBM was created to help function in its coding. Possibly. Maybe. We don't know for sure. We're just guesstimating with this. 1975. So CERN gave the IBM 5100 a special programming language just for this plan. And they're like, well, we don't know that's the case, but it could be. Once we read the report, we'll know, right? She's like, this is just about finding the truth. Nothing to do with conspiracy theories. Just about finding the truth. Nothing about tinfoil hats. I do love Daru's pain at it being a JPEG and not being able to copy paste. As someone that works in higher education, when someone sends you a JPEG of something and you can't copy and paste the text, ooh, it makes you so frustrated. So I shared in his disdain in that moment. So yeah, it says time control and its destruction of history. Well, that sounds ominous as F. Yep. So we have time control and destruction of history. Uh-oh. Is Okarin about to be right about things with the organization? So he's like, oh, you can read English because she's been in America. Mm-hmm. He's like, well done, assistant. Everything you did in America was for this moment. Hell, it might have been. Who knows? This whole thing is about time travel, so there's no telling what's been set up to happen. She's like, the hell it was. She's like, let's see. This, in turn, enables a utopia heading from the past to the future. So the realization of this will be CERN's reason for existence in the 21st century. So they talk about a utopia from past to future, and it being the reason for CERN's organization. And so he's like, a utopia, a dystopia. So I don't know why we changed the utopia to dystopia, but that seems to be like altering history to prevent the utopia from happening and letting CERN control everything seems to be what their goal might be. And he's like, for security reasons, this experiment, those engaged by the program, the Z program, will experiment via high energy proton collision. With the possibility of transference through space-time. So it's space-time travel. Yep, space and time travel. And he's like, we're talking about time travel. We're also talking about space as well. So we had before the idea that you had this node, right? We're going to talk about Kerr black holes a little bit, by the way, because we need to. But there's this idea we talked about earlier about the plane going around and eventually hitting like the time frame. I'm going to change the marker so you all can see this a little bit better. But it's the idea of you had like these two lines that were crossing, right? And the idea was that the plane would go around it. Well, this is the black hole. We're going to talk about this black hole here in a little bit. But I think it's not just about going back in time, but moving your space, right? Your spatial, where you move to, which if Amane has succeeded in time travel, then she could have traveled to a different world line as well to a different location. And she's like, well, it's like CERN has been investigating time travel for 40 years. Could be. Could be indeed. And she's like, well, it's too early to say that. The construction and implementation of the Large Hadron is the first step. Constructing it. Then stage 2 is implementation and tuning of the lifter. So the lifter is this little triangular thing. It looks like it has 3 little sticks coming out of it. It's got aluminum wrapped around it. Looks like one of those little pizza tables that you get to keep your pizza from getting the top of the box. But it looks like that. He's like, it was on the news. It's an ionocraft. And so it basically shows it floating. The phenomenon occurs when you run high voltage through the aluminum. So that's part of the time machine, right? Which is kind of like their microwave in the cell phone. Just saying. they'll use the black hole's power and the lifter, and that creates a time machine. So then they did animal experiments, but they're already at stage 4, which is human experiments. So there's been 14 people in Jellyman's report, which it was Jellyman's report number 14. So there's been 14 people in the report die. But here's the thing. They didn't go through all 14 reports. They just went through some of them. What if not all of them were dead mismatches? What if somebody lived that went through it? They didn't go through all the reports. That's the thing. What if Amane was one of them? That's the thing. So the detail are in Jellyman's report. Now, I wonder if Jellyman is the name of the report because the people turned to jelly, like the Gel Nanas, because they couldn't go back in time. He's like, well, I could look up this report, but is it a good idea or a bad idea? It's top secret stuff. I'm like, you've already infiltrated. At this point, you've infiltrated their system. If they're going to catch you, you might as well know the whole thing, right? And he's like, well, think about it. We're up against CERN, and the report's a top secret thing hidden for 40 years. Are we going to ignore it? So he tells, look, Okarin is bonkers. He is Gel Nanas. But the fact that he told Kurisu to go home because he didn't want her to get too deep in this, I love him. I love him for it. I'm like, Okarin, he cares about her. He doesn't want her to get hurt. He's seen her stabbed before, so there was that. But he's like, you go home. Maybe he doesn't remember her getting stabbed. But he's like, this could put you in danger. You're a genius with a bright future ahead of you. And he's like, well, you're my assistant. But I'm like, he's worried about you. And she's like, no, I'm not going home. And he's like, will you regret it? And he's like, well, I'm a super hacker. And she's like, I'm not going to regret it. And so they get into the reports to do their analysis. The operations, he's like, furthermore, this operation's name will be Legjarn's chest. And she's like, Norse mythology. So I looked up what that was. I'm saying it wrong. I realize that I am. It's Norse. I'm mispronouncing the A and the E together. How do you say that? We're going to just do this real quick because otherwise I'm going to be, let's hear it. So, Legjarn. How do you say it?
Legzen.
Oh, Legzen. Well, that's not at all how it's spelled, so.
Legzen.
It sounds even slower to be like, bitch, get it right. Legzen. So, Legzen's chest. Basically, Legzen in Norse mythology was a giant chest that had 9 locks around it, which held the sword of Legvitin, which was something from Loki. And so I feel like Okarin and Loki kind of go hand in hand because Loki's a trickster. I feel like him and Loki would get along pretty good. But I like the idea they call this mission Legzen's chest because there's all these different like protocols. They're getting deeper into reports from CERN. Like that part's really cool. I like that. So yeah. So they start going through these reports. Begin the operation. There's 14 files. I'll pick one at random. So file number 10. So we have 14 files. We get number 10. Number 10 was a man named James McCarthy, 31, male, USA, married, from January 28th, 2005. It said outcome was error, human is dead mismatch. It seems the infinite compression by the supergravity and the significant point street in the Kerr black hole were not able to be endured. So basically they could not get through the black hole to go through time and space properly, which we'll talk about in a second. But it says person composition, and it says that they were an orphan. I don't know. It feels like they're just getting orphans off the street for these experiments. So, yeah, what ended up happening to him? Because there's something else on here. It says, like, family. It says Karen, age 28. And then it says, like, Tim or Jeremy, like, ages 11 and 8. So I guess those are his kids, his wife and kids. Uh-huh. And so we get the human is dead mismatch from there. And he's like, that again. He could not survive. So they basically describe what ends up happening. And that picture of him. And so we see the man in the wall appears in New York. His body melts and has his jellied from April 3rd, 1921. Yeah, look at the date. So they tried to send him back in time. And it did send him back in time. Just not complete. Yep. He was found dead in New York, buried inside a wall. The body of this unidentified man was found to be soft. I love the shadows and highlights in this moment. Soft like jelly. It's like half his body with the rib cage and the skin exposed. And it's the gel nana. Yeah. It tried to go back, and there's his face and the eyeball. Oh my God. So essentially, they tried to send him back in time, but because things didn't align properly, it was like the gel nana. Oh, bitch. Okay. God, now it all is starting to make sense a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And so even if it isn't complete, they've succeeded in time travel. And so I don't know. I don't like the llama on the TV. It makes me think that they're being surveyed by somebody. I don't know. So then we had report number 8. Oh, lucky number 8. Linda Hill, British, Z Program 4. So it was February 15th of 2004. And the result is a human is dead mismatch. And I love the hand that we get. And then she time traveled back to 1972. The body of a woman was found in a jelly-like state in the road in Dharmapuri, Tamil Nadu, India. Uh-huh. Yup. Oh, it's so creepy. Very creepy. And then like this one, report number 7. So 10, 8, and 7. Mm-hmm. Michael Lang was German. There are a lot of American European. Interesting. So Z Program 4, human is dead, mismatch. And then it doesn't say where he ended up at. He's like a Japanese newspaper. Okay, yeah. So May 24th, 1936. He ended up at the foot of Mount Hiei in Kyoto. So there's 14 of those. My thing is, you looked at 7, 8, and 10. You didn't look at the most recent ones, because the most recent one was 10, and it was from 2005. So this is set right now in 2010. So within the last 5 years, they've clearly done 4 more human experiments. You're not going to look at any of those to see if any of them are, Amane or somebody we should note. What if Kurisu was one of them? Like what if we reveal that, I don't know, but Kurisu wasn't jelly when in the other world line, so I don't know. So why did they turn to jelly? And then Kurisu says, I believe that CERN is focusing their time travel on the use of Kerr black holes. They're cramming 10 to 21 grams into a space of 10 to 19 meters and sending it into the past. But then she uses the expression of, like, you can't stuff something big into a small hole. And Daru is perverted about it. But she's like, it'd be like trying to fit a sponge through the hole. You can't do it. So the contents are empty. And he's like, man, that's really tight. That explanation was too nasty, by the way. And she's like, you're a pervert. And he's like, I think you have considerable imagination yourself. He's like, it's only perverted because you figured out what it's perverted about. So, But yeah, basically, trying to fit something into a hole that's too small. So basically, one thing is their time machine is too small, or the window of space or the window of the black hole they're working with is not big enough. So that's the problem. That's why things are coming out jellified. So I looked a little bit about Kerr black holes. Kerr black holes are also known as rotating black holes, which, you know what else rotates? The plate in a freaking microwave. So and we have counterclockwise versus clockwise. It rotates on one of its axes of symmetry. It's all currently known celestial objects, including planets, stars, galaxies, and black holes, spin about one of their axes. There are 4 known black hole solutions to Einstein field equations, which describe jet gravity and general relativity. 2 of those rotate, the Kerr and Kerr-Newman black holes. It is believed that every black hole decays rapidly to a stable black hole, and by the no-hair theorem, except for quantum fluctuations, stable black holes can be completely described at any moment by these 11 numbers. Then we get into some math and quantum physics that are not my forte and that make me go, those are letters, but they don't represent what I think they represent. So yeah, it says variations in the black hole will either escape to infinity or be swallowed up by the black hole. This is because anything happening inside the black hole horizon cannot affect events outside of it. So it says, Astrophysical black holes are expected to have non-zero angular momentum due to the formation via collapse of rotating stellar objects, but effectively zero charge since any net charge will quickly attract the opposite charge and neutralize. For this reason, the term astrophysical black hole is usually reserved for the Kerr black hole. So they have this image, and it kind of looks a little bit like an infinity sign, where you have the boundaries are relevant to astrophysics. There are no physical surfaces. The boundaries are mathematical surfaces or sets of points in space-time relevant to the analysis of their properties and interactions. So up here, for example, they have this black hole, and it says, while from an infalling observer's perspective, the plunge into a rotating black hole occurs in a finite proper time and with a very high rapidity, from the perspective of a coordinate observer, at infinity to slow down and approach zero velocity at the horizon. I feel like Gunbuster prepared me a little bit for this. But essentially, so you have this idea of it kind of like spiraling around the black hole until it gets around to it, I think. And so there's this idea of time travel. If you go around it one way and come out the other, you would essentially have time traveled. It kind of goes back a little bit to episode 2 when we talked about the black holes from there. So, yeah. Basically, it's formed from the gravitational collapse of a massive spinning star, or from the collapse of collision and a collection of compact objects, stars, or gas with a non-zero angular momentum. As all known stars rotate, and realistic collisions have this momentum, it is expected that all black holes in nature are rotating black holes. It's a theory, right? A theory, as we've seen. Interesting. So yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it's cool that we're talking about this in relation to how the time travel could work. Meanwhile, back on the roof, Keoma has been like, what do we do with this information? And it feels like he's moping, but when Christina confronts him, she's like, we have to reach some conclusion. And he starts to laugh, and he's like, conclusion? What other conclusion could there be? We've got future gadget number 8. We'll complete a perfect time machine ahead of CERN. And she's like, what? She's like, wait, what? That's not what I signed up for. No. And again, Okarin has said from the beginning, there can only be one mad scientist. We're going to have world domination before CERN, right? And change the world's ruling structure. I'm like, my dude, okay. You've stumbled across a device that has beat out CERN's 40 years of investigative research. Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened. I'm just like, I do not see Christina at all going along with this because, yeah, she's like, you're nuts. Do you know that? I feel like maybe she's also kind of starting to catch on that he's a little bit delusional, and she's like, what? We're not going to beat out CERN. But what do we do with this? So we know that CERN has been conducting experiments. They've experimented on people. So far, to our knowledge, 3 of the 14 were no-goes. They turned to jelly. They did not make it into the past. But that leaves 11 other reports that we've not looked at that one of them could have been successful. Now, do we think it is totally successful? I don't know, because CERN hasn't, but just because they haven't advertised they've been successful in time travel doesn't mean they've not been successful in time travel. Because, for example, our crew was successful in time travel and nobody else knows about it. So they were successful with the text messages anyway. So, and the text messages kind of make sense because that's data that doesn't occupy a physical space like the banana does. So the idea that the text messaging could go into the past because it's just data and goes through the wavelengths and frequencies of the time travel when it was initiated by the microwave, in a weird way makes sense. But trying to squeeze the banana through that time and space, dimension was not the same. So I don't know. By the end of this episode, Christina seemed like she just accepted he was delusional, but I'm like, girl, are you going to go along with this? What about Amane? Amane knows they have the IBN 5100. Was she is Amane worried about them finding out about the time travel? I don't think she is, because otherwise she would have tried to stop them from using the 5100. So I'm like, I don't know what they're going to end up using. It's just, I don't know where we're going from here. I don't know where we're going from here. So there's that, but oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see what is going to happen with this. As far as the black holes go, it says in 2022 it was mathematically demonstrated that the equilibrium found by Roy Kerr in 1963 was stable, and thus black holes, which were the solution to Einstein's equation of 1915, were stable. One thing that's interesting is that I don't know if the dates that those people went back in time are relevant anyway. They seemed like random dates. Again, link click has made me believe that there is no such thing as irrelevant data. So I'm wondering if those dates, if they went back to those dates specifically for some reason, or because what were the dates? What were the times that they went back to? It was like 1972 and like 1936, 1921. I don't know if those dates mean anything, but I guess maybe we'll find out in the future. I don't know what. I want to look up actually the dates. So May 24th, 1936 in Kyoto, Japan. What happened in there? May 24th. There was a February 26th incident, which was a coup d'etat, and there was the 1936 Olympics in Japan, or it was in Berlin, Germany, but I don't know. So then what was the other date, if not that one? Because the one in India, where it was found October 2nd, so if we had India, October 2nd, 1972, anything happened there? Oh! It was the birth anniversary of Gandhi. Maybe something with that. What was the first date, though? It was in New York. April 3rd, 1921, New York. April 3rd. Get this. April 3rd, 1921, New York. What happened on April 3rd, 2021, 1921? It says... What is happening here? April 1st, 1921. April 3rd, 1921. Coal began rationing in the United Kingdom. State Department. It was talking about Albert Einstein in April 1st of 1921. Going to meet up arriving in New York to lobby for the Jewish state in 1921. So, interesting. I don't know. I don't know if the dates have any significance, but who knows? I'm sounding more like Okarin. Honestly, Okarin is not, I like him as a character. He could be, if he realized he was being flirty and kind and caring, I think that I could see why somebody would find him like a nice guy. I could see why Christina would stick around, but he's also like a maniac. So what do we do with that? Anyway, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back very soon, y'all, with more of Steins Gate. Bye.